Kingdoms of Akandia is a huge, epic, open world fantasy game where we will venture out into this open world and take on different missions. We will have a chapter book that we will go from chapter to chapter and trying to overcome whatever this world is throwing at us. This is a 1 to 4 player game that will be out on Kickstarter really soon. What I have here in front of me is a prototype, meaning that what you will see in this video and what you will have on your table in the finished version will probably not look the same. But I will show you how to set up this game and how to play it, what you can do in it, and what this game is actually about. So let's just have a look at it. At the start of the game, each player needs to pick a character they would like to portray as, and then take that character's player board, plus the action cards. You also need to take a character card. On this card you can see the history of your character. You can see the play type, meaning which type of battle dice you will have. You can see where your character will start on the map, your individual skill, your bonuses, and what they are immune to. Down here is the different levels of your character. At the start of the game you will not have any equipment. But when you are level 1, you can go out in the world and craft a weapon at the weaponsmith if you pay 4 coins and the needed resources. As you will go up in level, you will be able to craft bigger and better equipment. But for now, you have nothing. But you do have 3 starting potions. This here is your backpack. Inside of your backpack, you can carry 6 resources, with 4 resources in each stack. But on the sides of your backpack you have 4 spaces for potions. In each of these stacks you can have 2 potions, and each potion can be used twice. Your starting potions is 1 magic, 1 energy, and 1 medicine potion. You also need to take your starting battle die, as I showed you on your player card. The white one is an upgrade that you can use later in the game as your character becomes a higher level. This one here is the group ability die. Here we have your energy track, and you should place the red token on your highest level on your energy track. You do the same thing with your magic, but your level is on 1 on the track, and your experience is at the bottom as well, as you have no experience yet. This here is the setup of the big map in the center of the table. But it is of course depending on which chapter you are playing in the chapter book. Right now this is the start of the game and not much have happened. We have placed out our characters that are in our group, according to our character card. And next to our character we have our castle. We need to place the time token down here on number 1 on the track. Next we need to place out the eternal storm. We do this by rolling a d6. When we have rolled the d6, we place the eternal storm on that number. But we also need to place out the storm itself. We do this by rolling a d10 and a d12. Depending on which numbers we get, we place them out on the corresponding numbers on the map. We also need to roll a d6 to place out the tax token and the side quest token on the time track. This here in the center of the board is the keeper. She starts at 5 and 7. Finally, next to the board we have is the enemy board. Up here we have their magic, their life. Their card will be placed in the center. This over here is only used during boss fights. The players now also chooses 1 of their ability cards from category 1 that they will use in this game. There will be more cards as you move on in the story, but the card you choose now is the one that you start with. In addition to your ability card, you can also choose 1 group ability card now that you might be able to use during your gameplay. These will be activated during the game when 2 players roll the same symbol on the group ability die. Which symbol that needs to be rolled can be read at the bottom of the ability cards. Next to the table we also have the destiny cards, the side quest cards, and the loot cards. The chapter book will eventually tell you to place out enemies. And you can see how many you should place out depending on how many players you are. This is a 3-player game, so we should place out 3 bandits on the board. And we will do this by roll a d10 and a d12. 500 years ago, the 7 realms of Akandia was divided, and they were in battle. They were fighting each other over and over again. And while the kingdoms were fighting each other, well, a dark king named Brakanur took his chances. He gathered the worst mages of them all and formed a dark circle to bring out the most powerful dark energy so he would be able to take over all of this beautiful, beautiful world. But one king rose up to try to stop him. He was named Aragon. And he gathered all of these realms to try to stop the Dark King. Unfortunately, when they tried to stop this dark circle, it ended up in a big bang, creating the big storm. But for a moment, everything seemed good because the storm just disappeared and took everything with it. But of course, there's no story without the storm, right? So it came back sometime later. Everything now looked quite dark for this world. But a few days later, lightness came, and that is the Keeper. Now the Keeper is quite important in this game because when the Keeper dies, well, your gameplay is over and you have lost the game. Because the Keeper is kind of the light balance towards the dark storm in this world. Now it is up to you to try to keep the Keeper alive, but also complete tasks in this world. And we will be doing that by using this chapter book. The chapter book is kind of like the storybook of this game, and this one will keep the story going. You will read each chapter at the start of your game, and here it will tell you what you need to do. What is your tasks? What monsters or creatures, as they're called here, will you be facing? Because it's not just a storm. There will be more things in your way. Once you have read through the chapters and you know what you are facing, it is time for you to start to play the game. Each round in this game is played out during 8 different steps. And the first one is to draw a destiny card. So we simply draw one destiny card, and we read out the text loud and simply do whatever it says we need to do. In this case, all the heroes will have -1 move in this round. So once we have resolved the destiny card, we move into step number 2. And this is where the players get to do their actions or movements out on the board. At the start of the game, each player will have 4 steps that you can use to move around out on the board. Later in the game, there will be ways to get more movements. But you also have an action point. But you only have 1 action point, meaning that during your turn, you can only do 1 action. But you can do that action first and then you can do your movement, or you can do the movements and then do the actions. Or you can do some movement, an action, and then keep on doing your movements. That is all up to you. But how do you move out on the map? As you can see out on the map, we have some squares. Each of these squares represents 1 step. Meaning that if you have 4 movements, you could move 1, 2, 3, 4. To cross the rivers, you need to use the bridges, because your characters can't swim. So if, for example, this hero would like to go over here, they would simply move 1, 2, 3 steps. And along the way, they can also choose to do actions, if there's anything to do. And your heroes can move up and down, they can move to the side, but they can also move orthogonally. So that was the movement. Quite easy, right? You can move in any direction you want to, and to cross the rivers you need to use a bridge. It's not that hard. But then of course you can also do one action during your turn. And there are a bunch of actions you can do. You can choose to trade at the marketplace. This will also cost you one action point. But here you can buy or sell any goods and resources that you would like to buy and sell. There will be leather, there will be stone, there will be wood. Anything you can imagine will be able to be purchased or sold at this location. If you visit any of the available locations where you could craft weapons or gather resources, it will also cost you one action point. So the players can pick up different resources and put them in their bag. But they can also carry these resources to a producer out on the map and produce a product. This means that Redund can go to the carpenter and bring the woods and the beeswax to produce some planks. She then continues her journey to the mine. Here she will pick up one gem. Again, she will put that resource in her backpack. Sometime later, she will visit the weaponsmith. Here, she will use these resources and produce a mighty bow. Now she can equip this bow and become stronger in attacks. And if you enter your home castle to pick something up, it will cost you an action point. But there are some actions that will not cost you action points. So basically, whenever you pick something up, or when you visit any of the locations out on the map and use that action, you need to spend one action point. And there are many different locations out on this map where you can gather resources, and then you can use those resources to create better equipment, to evolve your castle, to do better protection, to make potions. There are a vast amount of options for the players to do in this world. But there are some things that are free actions. For example, if two players are standing on the same field out on the map, well then they can trade one resource for free. If they ever drop something on the map, well that is a free action. And if they initiate battle with any of the enemies out on the map, that is also a free action. But how do we battle? Whenever you jump into a field with an enemy and initiate battle, you become the attacker, and the enemy becomes the defender during the first turn of the battle. Whenever we are facing an enemy, we need to set up the enemy board. We place the enemy's card in the center, and then we place the tokens according to their values on their card. In this case, we are facing a bandit with an energy of 8 and a magic of 2. Now the hero gets to roll their attack die. If they have any weapons, that amount on the weapon is then added to their attack value. If you have any ability cards that will add more value to your attack, you can use them now as well. And if another hero is joining in on the attack, we can also roll the group ability die. And depending on which group ability we have active, we might get a little bonus. Here, for example, we have Mighty Slash, and if each hero roll the sword symbol, this will activate, giving us a +5 attack for every hero in the battle. But unfortunately, here we were alone. So now the enemy will also need to roll, and they roll their black die. But they also roll their ability die. And if they get a skull result, they will activate any effect down here. Depending on if they are the attacker or defender, different things will happen. In this case here, this enemy were the defender, meaning that they will get a +2 defense. But we need to subtract 1 from their magic, because every time they use the skull ability, it costs them 1 magic. And when they don't have any magic left, well, they can't use these effects anymore. Now it's time for us to see how much damage we have done. If you roll more than 1 die, you only count the highest number. in this case 3. But if you would have rolled more than 2 die, you would have counted the pair with the highest amount. Meaning that here you would get an attack value of 6, and the 1 would not count. If it instead would have been like this, only the 6 would count and not the 2 others, because we do not have any pairs. Once we have figured out which amount we need to calculate, we take that amount. And then we add up that amount with any weapons. In this case we have the gloves with a +3, giving us a total attack value of 6. And as we can see here, the defender has a defense of 6 +2, meaning that we do not do any damage. But if you have magic left, you can also use one of your ability cards. Kamitra here, for example, has the Dark Swap. So she can consume 2 magic to actually swap her die with the enemy's defense die. Now giving her a total attack value of 6 +3, meaning a total of 9. The bandits now have a defense of 3 plus their base value of 2 and their ability value of +2 defense, giving them a total defense of 3 +2 +2. So now they have a total of 7 defense. We hit them with 6 +3, giving us a total attack value of 9. So we managed to do 2 damage on the enemy. If your character has a ranged attack ability, you can attack an enemy from 1 field away. Meaning that you do not need to enter the same field to be able to attack that enemy. So that is how you attack a creature. You go in with the amount of red die that you have. You throw the die and then you take the highest pair or the highest value of the die. You add up any equipment that you might have and then you strike that damn enemy with your full force. But remember that if you have a fellow hero on the same field as you, or 1 square away if they have ranged weapon, they can help you in battle. So the players can work together to defeat a creature. But how does this really work? Well, let's say that the players are facing the Screaker. The Screaker now rolls a 1. Amira jumps into the fight and she uses her Earthquake. This will let her turn the creature's die from 1 into a 6. Because the ability will let the attack or defense die of the creature to be flipped to the other side. So now the creature is stronger, which is quite bad, right? Well, the good thing is that Kamitra has a Dark Swap, and she can use this ability to swap the die between her and the creature. This means that now all of a sudden the heroes are much stronger and the creature is much weaker. Now that's teamwork. Now this was a normal enemy right here, but sometimes we will also face bosses, and then the board will look a little bit different. A boss fight will work in the same way as a normal creature fight, but now we have activated the right side of this enemy board. Whenever we have done 1 attack phase or 1 defense phase, this one will move 1 step. Whenever this cylinder hits its max position, the dark spell down here will activate. But there is a way to stop this spell from happening. Down here we can see a symbol, in this case a shield. This means that if 2 heroes that are fighting this boss rolls the group ability die and gets a shield, then they can actually deactivate this spell from happening. If the creature is still alive after we have done our attack, the tables are now turned, meaning that now we are the defenders and they are the attackers. So now we need to roll the black die to protect ourselves, and they need to roll their red die and add the die result with their attack value on their creature card. And here we can use any armor that we have. And remember that if we have a fellow hero on the same field as us, they can also use their abilities to jump in and defense. And this is the way the fight goes on until either, well, we are dead, or hopefully the creature is dead. Some enemies will have abilities that will give us different conditions. In this case here, the Squeaker here will poison the characters. This is then shown by putting the condition token on your character board. Now you can cure this by using the medicine potion. This effect will last the entire battle and remove the condition. If we do not have the medicine to cure this potion, it will actually stick with us too after the battle as well. Meaning for every game round we will suffer the consequences of this condition. And it might lead to our death. So be sure to get some medicine along the way. If we manage to defeat the enemy completely, we will get the experience points standing on that enemy. And then we get to raise the experience by 1. If we reach number 10 on the experience track, we can now visit the trainer out on the map and stay there for 1 round. Once we have done this, this experience track will reset. But now we have gained 1 level. As you go up in level, you will also open new possibilities for your character. You are level 1 at the start of the game and are only able to craft weapons at the weaponsmith. But as you progress and go up in level, you will open new possibilities. At level 2, for example, you will be able to do armor at the weaponsmith as well. Meaning that now you can produce weapon and armor. But you also open new abilities for your hero, but also group abilities. And there are a bunch of new levels in this game. And for every level you will open new things that you can craft. The things that you can craft is always at a location out on the map. And it will cost you to craft these equipments. This is why it's important for you to get coins, but also resources. So you are able to craft the equipment that you want and need. Besides the experience, the players also get to draw some loot cards. And we get to draw as many loot cards as there were heroes in the battle. Meaning that if there were 1 hero, well, it would only be 1 loot card. But if there would have been 3 heroes, it would have been 3 loot cards. And then the heroes can divide the resources that are stating on these cards. But if you do not manage to defeat the enemy and they manage to defeat you, well then you lose 1 level. You also lose any equipment that you cannot have on that level. Meaning that if you have equipment for level 3 and you are now level 2, well you need to let go of that equipment. And you will now respawn at your castle with full life and everything. So it's not that bad. But the adventure that you were out on is unfortunately failed. But if you ever feel like you are about to lose, you can actually try to flee. You do that by rolling a d6. If you get 1, 2 or 3, you manage to flee away from your enemy. Meaning that you can move 1 step away from them. And you will have 3 attempts to do this. If you fail during those 3 attempts, well, you did not manage to flee. That was a player's turn, and like I said, a player can do many things during their turn. They can move, they can fight, they can gather, they can craft. The options are many. But once the players are done with their turns, we move into step number 3. And this is where we move non-player hero characters. And in the chapter book, you can see how they will move. How many steps, where they want to go, and so on. Just follow these instructions. And of course that is depending on who you are moving, where you are moving them, and which chapter you are in. In step number 4, it is the creature's time to move. And they will move 1 field out on the map. Using the D8. But also this little board here. Meaning that we should roll this die, look at the result, and then look at this board to see where they move. In this example here, they move 1 step to their left. Now, whenever 2 creatures are on the same field, they create a horde. From now on, these 2 creatures here, they will move together, and their attack value is now doubled. There can only be a maximum of 2 creatures on each field. They still only use 1 die, and if you defeat them, you still only get 1 loot per hero. If a hero is ambushed or attacking a herd of enemies, they will need to fight them all. But they will fight from the strongest to the weakest, until they have hopefully defeated them all. If a creature ever hits the border of the map, they will simply go in the opposite direction. Whenever they land on any location out on the map, that location is now blocked and cannot be used. If a creature enters the same field as a hero, they will initiate the battle, meaning that they will ambush you. And now they are the attacker and you are the defender. During this attack, you cannot use any ability cards because, well, you're being ambushed and a little bit shocked maybe. If a creature instead enters your castle, they will start a siege. Whenever a siege is initiated by the enemies, the siege stone is moved 4 steps on the time track. If the time stone hits the siege stone without freeing the siege, the adventure fails and we must restart. To protect your castle when you are not home, you can buy defense towers. These will give your castle a defense of +2. But you can also buy and craft bastilles. This will give your castle an attack value of +4. You can have a maximum of 4 defense towers around your castle. But you can actually build these defense towers in any fields out in the world. If you build one of these defense towers, for example here where we can do some wool, the creatures cannot block this location. This means that now we could move into this field to collect some wool without fighting the enemy. If we want to fight the enemy, well, we can still do that, of course. Just as the heroes, the creatures need to use bridges to cross water. So that was the monster movement in step number 4. In step number 5, we need to look in the little storybook here to see if it says that we need to move any other creatures out on the board. And step 6 is also us looking in the storybook to see if we need to move any bosses out on the map. Once we have checked this, we go into step number 7. In step number 7, we need to move the Eternal Storm. This is again done by using the D8 and the board. We simply roll the die, and whatever direction it points to, the storm will move in that direction. Some of the destiny cards will also affect the storm. This one here, for example, will move the storm by rolling the D10 and the D12. The storm, however, does not need to use any bridges to be able to cross a river. Because, well, it's a storm. If the storm is ever moved off the edge of the map, it will return on the opposite side of the map. And the storm is the only thing in this game that will do this. If the storm ever hits a creature or a hero, that hero or creature will need to sit out 1 turn, because they are now paralyzed by the energy in the storm. That was step number 7, the Eternal Storm. Now we are in the last step, which is step number 8. And now it's time for us to move the time stone on the time track. But depending on where it lands, different things might happen. If the time stone ends up on an empty square, well, nothing happens. But if the time stone hits the side quest tokens, each player can draw 1 side quest, meaning one of these. These side quests are extra and comes in an expansion. But if you have them and if the time stone lands on the token, you can go to the marketplace and accept this side quest. But it's only during this round. If the time stone lands on the tax token, each hero in the game will receive 5 coins. Because now it's time for us to collect some taxes. Once you have paid out the taxes, the tax token will move to the next 3. It will always move at least 6 spaces further. If the time stone lands on this token over here, the Eternal Storm discharges, and every creature and hero within 1 field away from the Eternal Storm out on the board will be paralyzed. As soon as we have resolved the Eternal Storm, this token will move to the next 3, at least 6 steps further on the timeline. When we have moved the Timestone out here on the track, we are ready to go again. And hopefully we manage to complete whatever we set out to complete in this chapter book from the start. When we manage to finish what we set out to do, we need to read the next part. And then a bunch of things are going to happen. Like I told you, this is like a storybook. There will be new enemies out on the boards, but there will also be new things that you need to complete. But that is not the only time you need to check the next step in the storybook. Because whenever the Timestone hits the History Stone out on the track, we also need to read on in this storybook, giving us maybe a little bit of less time to complete what we actually want to do. And that is how you play Kingdoms of Akandia. This is an epic, huge fantasy world. I mean, what I have shown you here is just a small part. And what I have shown you is only 1 chapter out of 3. The whole campaign itself is about 60 hours to complete. So there is a lot of things for the players to venture out and dig into in this game. You can upgrade your characters, you can get more resources, you can upgrade your castles. There is plenty of things to dig into in this game. And of course you cannot play the whole story at once, so at certain times, preferably at the end of a chapter, just before you're going to start a new chapter, you can save the game. Maybe take some pictures, or write down some notes, whatever you would like to. Or just keep it up on the table, because it looks so pretty, right? As I said at the start of the game, this is just a prototype. The finished version will probably look a bit different. I know that there will be double layer player boards, and this player sheet here is not really finished either. There will also be made a new die with letters on instead of numbers, which will make it much easier to find the locations out on the maps. There will also be expansions with 3D models on the castles. The standees out here on the board is also straight from the factory and will probably just look a little bit different in the finished version. But still, I think that this game has a lot of things going for it. Even though this is just a prototype, it still looks really cool. And the story itself is quite huge, quite big. There's so much for the players to discover. And like I said, this here is just the first chapter. There's 3 more of these, and the story itself is quite well written, and you really want to know what will happen next. That, my friend, was Kingdom of Akandia. Quite a huge big box, as you can see here, full with enemies, stories, open worlds and challenges for you to take on. If you want to know more about this game, well, check out the links down in the description, because there will be links to the Kickstarter, to their webpage, and everything you will need to know. If you liked my video, if you like my channel, well, like it, subscribe to it, whatever you want to do. But most important, my friend, please keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. And until next time, peace out.